How did you come to be a migrant in the UK?
I come from Kosovo originally, and at the time of my student years there was oppression from Serbian government. The situation was quite difficult. The universities shut. I was part of the protest and this rebellion against the regime. At the time I also had my son, my first son, and I decided that that was not a place that I wanted to raise him. It wasn't safe for myself, it wasn't safe for him.
And what was the experience like of being a migrant coming into the UK? How did you feel?
Leaving Kosovo and entering UK, although I was familiar with the country and the system and I could speak the language, it was quite difficult. Seeking asylum is not an easy process. First of all, although you come with all this wealth, experience and knowledge, you are almost like stripped all of that. You're stripped of identity. So life in the UK becomes so tough for migrant people, specifically if there are asylum seekers and refugees, because you have to rebuild all of that, rebuild confidence, rebuild experience, and start from zero.
And that has somehow led also to the work that you do today and have done for the last 15 years. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Of course, originally I was a pediatric nurse back home, and when I came here those qualifications were not accepted. Because my English was quite good, I started in the area of interpreting translations. Same at the time we had an influx of people leaving Kosovo. So I become involved with through translations to advise work, and later I was working for a homeless charity, again continuing with refugees. I think my own personal experience has helped me a lot because I could relate to the experiences that refugees have and bring with them, and the difficulties and the challenges that they have.
What are some of the challenges of migrants in the UK and vulnerable families?
I think one of the biggest challenges is not being able to work, not being able to participate in the labor market, or if they have any experience, or if they have degrees that are not accepted, then having to do very low skilled jobs which is not paid well. Often this either makes you dependent on the welfare system, or it makes you vulnerable to various types of exploitation, not only by the dodgy employers but also by the communities and itself.
And you talk about migrants being vulnerable or having complex needs. What do you mean?
Majority of migrants who come to the UK, if they're not employed, they rely on the welfare system. Often the housing, they live in poor conditions, often they're homeless, so they have to approach local authority for assistance. So apart from that, the income they receive is often very low. It won't cover all the basic needs. Access to free legal advice, access to education is very difficult. Learning the language, if you do not speak the language, that is a major barrier. These are the challenges that all migrants face in the beginning when they come to the UK.
Do you feel that migrants get somehow exploited?
Of course, they're exploited from many ways by the system itself. They're exploited by landlords, they're exploited by employers, but they're also exploited by their own community, and that's how we tend to work. I tend to work quite a lot with people who have either been trafficked, sexually exploited, or have difficulties with their employers or landlords.
The last few years have been particularly difficult for migrants given the austerity reforms. That's been the subject of your research. What did you find?
Um, the welfare system is being reshaped and transformed to a way that is going to be very difficult to be accessed. I think the focus of the research was, for me, it was important to find out how are these reforms going to affect refugee families, in particularly those that are new to the country, that has been in the country for less than 3 years. So the research is very concerning, the finding of the research, because it shows that migrant and refugees are continuing to be excluded from the employment, from labour market. They continue to live in poor conditions. They continue to suffer poor health because of poverty and housing conditions. So I think apart from that, they are often being dispersed outside of London, where their supporting network is. So they are dispersed to areas such as Birmingham, Luton and further distances, where they cannot have the community support or the family support that they might get in London.
Now, a few years ago, after working for many years for a charity doing senior advice work in this area, you set up your own social enterprise. Can you tell us a bit about that and why you set it up and what you do with it?
I set up Chrysalis Family Futures as a social enterprise. One, it was because I was becoming frustrated at the system and how the system supports the vulnerable families and complex needs families. First, it is very defragmented. The other reason was that the charities were struggling financially, therefore unable to obtain the finances to continue to provide services that support vulnerable families. So these were the drives that pushed me to leave my job and to set up an organization that can somehow become sustainable through the profit-making part, but also continue to do this important work that continue the support that is very important for migrant and marginalized groups.
You have a support model which you call Protect, Grow and Emerge. What does that mean?
I'm very proud of this model because I think it includes 3 stages of what is needed to support someone who's going through difficulties, that has complex needs. Could be health, could be housing, could be unemployment. So what do you do to support a family? This is where I think the government and the local services get it wrong, because often they only intervene at the stages where the situation has become so difficult, and often at the stages where they want to take the children into their protection. So I think the 3 stages that I have set up is to enable families not only to help them, to advise them what their rights are, to ensure that they are housed in a good housed in accommodations that are of good standards, access their rights through the welfare system, but also access education so they can improve their skills and they can move on. The second stage, grow, that is where I believe that working with a family with complex needs is not necessarily just ensuring that they have a place to live and they have money to eat food, but it's important to help them and enable them to reconnect with the skills that they have, to reconnect with their resilience, and to use the experience to further, to advance their lives towards a better future. And the third stage, emerge, is exactly that, to become able to become independent of services, to have their own jobs, to create their own livelihood.
Now, recently you were asked to give a speech on International Women's Day. And what do you think is the role of women migrants in leadership positions?
I think my personal experience is that I have worked with a lot of migrant women, and often with women who has had quite difficult experiences being a migrant, including myself, and that is what drives the passion to become a leader in the community, to want to change things. And I think it's very important that we understand that these women can change the situation, can change the world, and should be supported.
Final thing, what message would you give to migrants living in the UK today, especially those that perhaps are having a difficult time?
I think the message that I would like to give is to think about their own experiences, to think of the experiences in a positive way rather than negative. I understand that it can be really difficult and we can easily become hostile towards the host environment and start blaming one another. But I think it's important that apart from finding yourself and your identity and finding your home, because that's the journey that every migrant goes through, the transformation to find where they belong. It's also important the part of the integration, part of being part of the society where we live. It's important to realize that this is home, and your participation in the society is very important, but also to show the government, specifically now where there's a lot of negative portrayal of migrants, to show what we can do, and then perhaps we can actually help to make this country better than it is.